Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about my experience doing my first three booths where I've been selling my books at markets. If you saw my last video, it has been a little while since I recorded that one talking about the prep I was going to do, but I have been doing stuff in the meantime, I promise you. The markets that I'm going to be talking about, there's the three that I've done. They were all done by this local community hall. They happened once a month on Saturdays from 10 until 1 p.m., and those are the only ones I've done so far. I did mention previously that I was looking to get into the local farmers market, and basically what happened is for my area, farmers markets are required to have a certain percentage of their vendors be farmers. And so basically, what would have needed to happen is that either an extra farmer needed to join the market on the day I was going to do it, or they needed another artisan to drop out, and that just didn't happen. And then the summer passed and they closed down. So unfortunately, I was never able to go to the farmer's market and actually see if they'd be a good fit or not. So two of the three markets I did were in the summer. The first one was July, the second was August, and the third was September. So the first market in July, it didn't go very well, I can tell you that. I was really excited for it and I was really looking forward to it. I mean, I was so excited that I put a lot of thought into my outfit. You probably can't tell when you look at it, but I did put thought into it, I swear. Um, it was a really hot day, which may have affected things. I don't know. I will also note that that weekend happened to have two other events in the region, plus a whole bunch of weddings in the community that were scheduled, which might have affected it, which would explain why in the end there were only about 20 people that actually came through the market, which isn't great. It was pretty slow that day. But I did manage to sell two copies of one of my books, which was great. But let's get into some of the problems that I had. So, problem number one, my tablecloth did not arrive in time. It was still in the mail. So, I didn't have a tablecloth, as you can see in the photos, which, it's not necessary, I guess, to have a tablecloth, but it does look a lot better when you have a tablecloth. It doesn't look the greatest just sitting on the bare table. So that's problem number one. Problem number two was that when I went to order the holders and the stands I was going to use for bookmarks, I was only able to buy one in my initial order as opposed to the two I needed. So I only had the one, which just basically meant I had to try and get creative, and I don't think it particularly worked because I just kind of laid them out. I laid one of the designs out on the tabletop, and I think they just kind of then vanished because they're not large and they're lying flat, so it doesn't really draw your eye or anything. So if you are selling bookmarks with your own books, make sure they are standing up, because the design I laid flat had no interest, and then at subsequent markets it was actually one of the more popular designs for people to pick up. So yeah, I think it came down to how I arranged it, that it didn't do very great and didn't really get any attention. Now, problem number three with the first market, I didn't have some of my books. So I can blame Amazon for this because I get my books printed through KDP and get them shipped from Amazon. So I had already received my proof copy because, you get a proof copy sent to you. So I had the proof copy with me, but the rest of the copies that I ordered to actually sell were still in the mail. They hadn't arrived yet. So I didn't have them with me. And yeah, that kind of sucked because I didn't have them. There was one guy who actually seemed really interested in my novella, but when I told him I didn't have a copy, he was like, "Oh, well, I'll have to get it next time." And I am telling you, if people say they're going to get it next time, 90% of the time, they're not planning to get it next time. So push for the sale. And I couldn't in this instance because I didn't have any copies. I only had the proof copy that had the not for resale banner on it. So that really sucked. And basically, life lesson: order extra earlier books. If you're planning to do it, order extra early, because honestly, my whole experience through this has been like KDP has been really slow, except for one instance. If you don't know what KDP is, I'm talking about Kindle Direct Publishing. So that's just getting it printed through Amazon. And yeah, my experience is give yourself minimum 2 weeks, but 3 weeks from your event to be safe, because it may take a while. And that's what happened with me. Is throughout the summer when I ordered stuff, it would take 3 weeks to get to me. So, lesson learned. Now on to market number 2. So, market number 2 was held in August. And this one was a better date because we didn't have any other major events happening in town or in the region on that day. So I wasn't competing with like the big summer festival and a dozen weddings. So, that helped. That definitely seemed to help. Now, this one I think went a lot better. As you can see in the photos, my tablecloth had arrived. So I had a tablecloth, which was great. I think it just makes it look a little bit sleeker, a little bit more professional, a little bit more like, yes, I'm actually an author, not I just printed these in my basement and I'm selling them to you. Just kind of the vibe I got. I also had got in a second holder for my bookmarks in, which is great. Probably going to eventually order a third one so I can have up to 6 bookmark designs held in them. But that's a little bit down the line. I don't have that many books and accompanying bookmark designs at this exact moment. And of course, the biggest and most important part of this one is that I had all of my books. They'd arrived, which is good. The market was a month later. I'd be really worried if they hadn't arrived. I sold 4 books that market, which still wasn't quite enough to fully cover the vendor fee. The vendor fee for all these markets were $25 per market, by the way. But at least I did get a bit closer and I did get more sales in. The market at this point in time was suffering a little bit under some illusions, I'm going to say. So they brought in a very popular local vendor who makes and sells donuts. And basically, they were leaning really heavily on this donut vendor to bring in foot traffic. And they definitely brought in foot traffic. Do not get me wrong. This was a lot busier than the previous market where only 20 people showed up. This time there was probably closer to 50 people, 40, 50 people, which I mean, no, doesn't sound a lot, but keep in mind that at the moment of these markets, I was living in a very, very small remote community, and this market was I'll get into it later. I'll get into it a bit. The donut vendor was bringing in a lot of people, which sounds great in theory, except what was happening was people would pull in, come into the building, make a beeline straight for the donut vendor, buy their donuts, and then leave. They weren't really browsing. They were just here to get these donuts because the donut vendor, they don't have like a fixed full-time shop. The only way people can get their goods are by going to various markets. So as a result, there was an uptick in people there, and there was an uptick in sales for me, but it wasn't the most effective way of bringing people in, at least for anyone who wasn't the donut vendor. One thing that I will say when you are getting ready for booths the day of is check the weather. I had already chosen and laid out my outfit the night before just to like speed up my prep time in the morning. I'm still kind of trying to figure out my gonna be go-to author uniform. I think I have my hairstyle down because it's like what I call the world's easiest updo, but 90% of the time people compliment me on it because apparently it looks complicated. I don't know, but whatever. I laid out my outfit, and it was this nice skirt and a shirt that I thought looked well together. And then the day ended up not being warm at all. This was August, guys. And I was freezing. I was so cold. My legs were so cold because the weather had decided to turn and not be super hot and sunny. Pick your outfit the day before, lay it out. That's all well and good. And then for whatever you are, add in extra layers to that plan for if you need them. Whether it's tights, whether it's, a jacket or a vest or a raincoat, I don't care. Whatever it is, do that and you will thank yourself later. Because otherwise you'll be like me who didn't check it and just went, yeah, it's probably going to be warm. And then proceeded to freeze. Quick break for me recapping my 3 markets. This is where it gets interesting. Basically, the people organizing the market kind of sent out an email to everyone involved and was like, yeah, there hasn't been great attendance in the summer. We're looking for ideas. Basically, they were looking into like, we need to figure this out. Maybe we just need to like change our dates and times entirely, which most, I don't know if all of the responses, because this was just an email and not everybody hits reply all. So I don't know what everybody was saying. But I do know a couple other people were like, yeah, I think a time change makes sense. And I chimed in to say, yes, I agree, because the current time that the markets were held at, the ones that I attended were held at, was 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. And this is a perfectly fine time, except for the fact that the Saturday farmers market is happening at the same time, which then results in people feeling they need to choose either the farmers market or this market. And most of the people know and are very familiar with the vendors at the farmers market and they want fresh produce. So they're going to go to that one. The plan for them is they're going to shift their hours to be 1 to either 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. I can't remember now. I think 4 p.m., which makes a lot more sense to all of us because then we're not competing with the farmers market. And then people were just saying, oh, we need better vendors. It's just because we're competing with events. And I chimed in and was like, actually, I think it's a fault of marketing and I have thoughts. And I sent them a document with my thoughts, and I'm not going to explain all my thoughts right now. Okay, I'm not going to explain all my thoughts in this. It's not important to you guys. You don't need to worry about it. Other authors don't need to worry about it. It's just something that I kind of observe because of what I do as a day job, that you do have to a certain extent, know how to market events. Because if you don't, well, like a good chunk of my day job involves planning public events and running public events, okay? So I knew I had a few thoughts and pointers. And I sent them to them. And, come the next market in September, they did actually seem to be implementing some of them. Market number 3. Now, this one went really well in the grand scheme of the markets I've done so far. That is to say, I actually turned a profit. So for this market, there was a lot more foot traffic. There was probably closer to like 60 or 70 people, I would say. I didn't really keep track. And so there were some really great highlights about this market. Yes, I turned a profit. Sold enough books to entirely cover my vendor fee cost. And I also sold a couple of bookmarks. I give the bookmarks away for free if somebody buys a book, but if they don't want to buy a book, then they can pay me for the bookmarks. Simply because bookmarks cost money to print, and they're not super, super cheap to print. Like, they're cheap, but they're not the cheapest. So that's why I only give it away for free if you buy a book from me as a sort of like goodwill gesture, a nice token of appreciation for buying a book. You get one for free. But yeah, I turned a profit, so that was really nice that I finally did that. Part of it is, I think, you just get more comfortable with it and you kind of figure out, better display options. And that does just take a little bit of trial and error. Unfortunately, I can't be like, do this, don't do that, because at this time, I don't have that specific level of experience to guide you in that way. And I do think it does take a little bit for you to figure out what works for you. Now, also at this market, I had a third title. It was coming out the next month. It came out in October, so go check it out. But so I had another title available to at least show people. They couldn't buy it yet because it wasn't out yet. But I had that, which was really nice to be able to at least show people and kind of like get the word out that like, hey, it's gonna be here. So I had that, which helped, I think, make the table look a little bit even fuller because it had always previously seemed a little empty to me. So I think having that third title, even though it was just the one copy, kind of helped with making the table look better. I also had a really nice interaction where a woman who had previously bought my novella, The Stag and the Horse, came back with her friend, and she came over to me and she was like, I loved it. I read it all in one afternoon. I couldn't put it down. And that was like so nice to hear and see that like she actually genuinely loved it and liked reading it. And I was like, that's so great to hear. And her friend like was hearing her rave about it and then bought a copy herself, which was like super nice. And I think that is kind of the big thing you can get out of from markets. It definitely helps to generate the word of mouth a little bit more in your community. And also, just let's face it, online, it can feel a lot like you are just shouting into the void when you're trying to get your book out there online. So I feel like this is a really good way to just like kind of get it out there and actually feel like you're gaining traction because you can see it happening in real time. So that's really, really nice. So that's kind of in summary how my 3 markets went. As you kind of probably can get from this, it was definitely a learning experience. It definitely been a bit of a learning curve. Biggest takeaways is order everything really, really, really early. Even if you feel like a crazy person for having to sit around for 3 weeks, trust me, it's a lot better than if it doesn't show up and you're scrambling to come up with things. That is kind of all I have to say about my previous market. So I hope it was helpful. I hope it was at least interesting to listen to. I will probably have another video coming out in a couple of months. I am in the process of booking some Christmas markets. I have one booked for sure, and the second one that I'm still trying to book. I'm going to be doing Christmas market, and I'm actually moving right before then. moving to a different city, and it's a much larger city. So it's going to be very interesting and very exciting, and I'm having my fingers crossed that I will do a lot better because I have a lot of ideas, and you guys will see them in the next video. Anyways, thank you so much for watching and listening to my video, and I hope you liked it. I hope you got something out of it, and I will see you in the next one.